We have a path to the majority. I don't think anybody would ever say it was going to be easy, but it exists, it is there. I think that we've done a lot of work to give ourselves the best chance of retaining our majority and keeping the gavel out of Kevin McCarthy's hands.
The 2022 midterm elections will be a report card for President Biden and what he's been able to do with the Democratic Congress in his first 2 years.
We just have to keep the faith. We just have to persevere. We just have to vote.
But the catch is that the election of a president's first term in office usually does not bode well for his party.
I have absolutely no intention of us losing this election.
The truth is, we simply cannot afford 2 more years of Democrat control.
The question becomes, do Democrats even have a chance this time around?
In some ways, there are 2 different elections happening at once right now. If the election is about inflation and the economy and economic stress, Republicans will win. If the election is more about abortion rights, extremism, and Trump's own position in the Republican Party, then Democrats are going to win.
We did a poll at the end of September, and we asked people what their top issues in voting were, but we also asked them which party they trusted more on a set of different issues. More than half of registered voters say they trust Republicans more on crime, inflation, and the economy, and more than half of registered voters say they trust Democrats more on climate change and abortion. More Americans say that issues related to the economy are a bigger issue of their vote this midterm election than issues like abortion and climate change.
These competing political fronts have pivoted campaign strategy on both sides of the aisle.
When the Supreme Court reversed Roe v. Wade, I think that did shift our focus. And I also think that it shifted the focus for a lot of voters across the country. That has become, the defining issue of this election. Not the only one, but probably the biggest.
Voters view Republicans as the more extreme of the 2 parties. They don't love the Democratic Party, but they do see Republicans as more extreme on issues relating to abortion, gay rights, immigration, and so that has given Democrats this opening.
In case of a referendum on the party in power, I think that the Dobbs decision kind of scrambled that a little bit, because for most people they saw this huge precedent-shattering change in their lives being brought by Republicans and the Republican Supreme Court. So that now this referendum is not just on the Democrats in power, but on Republicans and their policies, the policies they've been fighting for over the last 50 years.
If Democrats don't address inflation and don't get voters convinced that they are worried about inflation and will work to try to curb inflation, then their offensive work on abortion rights and Republican extremism will be all for naught. But Republicans, on the flip side, they have to do a good job of not appearing extreme, of trying to distance themselves from people in their party who are talking about complete national bans on abortion rights.
Meanwhile, Biden himself is suffering from low approval ratings.
I'm an American president, not a president of red America, blue America, but of all America.
As the face of the Democratic Party, he could prove to be a liability at the ballot box.
President Biden is dragging down the Democratic candidates a bit because he's got these low approval ratings. So it's a challenge for people running for office to tie themselves to the president.
Our focus is on making sure that our members have a record that they can run on, separate and apart from anybody else, regardless of what the national mood is or the national feelings. They have their own piece they can run on.
Even with changing political landscapes and the Biden factor, Democrats are hopeful about their chances of keeping the House, or at least limiting their losses. That level of optimism was not present at the start of 2022. It's a late glimmer of hope that Democrats are trying to ride through all the way to November.
The environment going into these midterm elections was not looking very good for Democrats, and it's still not necessarily looking great for them, but with some issues that have been happening and the attention on different issues for the voting population, it could bode slightly better for Democrats than I think a lot of analysts were expecting when we were coming into this election season.
Democrats went from really feeling as if there was no chance at keeping the majority and just trying to mitigate the losses as much as possible to now actually thinking that, it's not likely, but they have a chance.